the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Further questions? If not, all approve, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion passes. At this time, we'll look at the consent calendar. Do we have any questions?
Madam Chairman, I would like to add items D, I, K3, P, Q, R, S, and U, and I move approval of consent calendar with those additions.
I'll second that motion.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion passes. Item 4 is public testimony on items relating to the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success. There are none. Item 5, matters relating to the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success. A, is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the approval of funds to continue 5 successful intensive college readiness programs for adult education students and extend the current evaluation contract for evaluation of the programs in partial fulfillment of Rider 40, Aligned Basic Education and Post-Secondary Education with General Appropriations Act. Dr. Judith Laredo.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The item before you, you also have a supplemental document that we added yesterday based on the request of one of the institutions that was recommended for the additional funding. These institutions that are being funded for the additional amount of money are based on evaluation results and the success that their programs have had. One of the institutions, South Texas College, informed us that they did not want to accept these funds at this time because they had funding that they had received and felt that it would be a duplication of service. They are still continuing with their work, and so when this occurred, that allowed another institution who had received the same rating as well to come up into that rank to be considered for the funding. So that is why you have a supplemental document, so it reflects the institution who now has said, no, let somebody else have it. We've got some money to operate with. We'll look at, see what you have down the line and then apply at a later time and give it to another institution. And that's why the change is there for Midland to receive the funds. That is the only change on these documents. These programs have been in operation over the past 2 years, and they are showing success, particularly in that math and reading area in terms of students moving forward into credit-bearing courses. That is my presentation, Madam Chairman.
Questions? Yes.
So we're amending this that Midland would be added and South Texas removed?
That is correct. And
I move approval.
And you have an email from the institution that so supports that they don't need the funding at this time.
We need a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion passes. Thank you. B and C, D are on the consent calendar. E is on the consent calendar. We'll go to F, an update on the progress of the transition year and operational plan for addressing lower skilled students determined to be at adult basic education levels. Dr. Gary Tomerlin and Dr. Judith Laredo.
Madam Chairman, I'm going to be making the presentation, and Dr. Tomerlin is here in case you have any additional questions. We have teamed up as 2 divisions in our work around ABE. My division has the lead in that work, but because we are also teaming with our partners of workforce as we move forward with the considerations on the ABE population that we will be needing to address as we complete the TSI assessment. That's why Dr. Tomerlin is also here. What we have today is a very quick update for you. If you recall, in April, you approved our TSI assessment, which raised the question because of what we saw in terms of the new report from TSI. Go ahead. We found with the TSI, because in our design, There would be three facets of that test. The test would provide data that showed that a student was college career ready, or it would show that a student was not college career ready, able to take credit-bearing courses, but might need some remedial assistance. And in addition to that, the third component of this test that we are currently working on is developing that part of the test that will then show students who are below ninth grade level. The interesting and most important thing to this entire test is that both for students in developmental education or those who would fall below ninth grade into ABE, there is a diagnostic component. This is a first for Texas. It's a first for the nation. And so this is why, as we move forward, we have questions we will have to answer. Next slide. If you recall in our presentation to you in April, we showed you the data of the first phase of the results from the administration of that TSI instrument. We had not finished the adult basic ed portion of that test, but looking at the data, we can see the percentage of students who would be deemed college ready, as well as the students who would be needing remediation. We look at this data, and we can also tell that based on the percentages that you see, we have a potentially large number of students who will fall below ninth grade level. Next slide. We know that a vast majority of lower skill students are being served by our community colleges. This is a slide we also showed you the last time, so that if you look at the slide, we know that 39.2% of our students who are scoring below college ready are moving into the community college system, and you see the percentages there. And we have a few percentages in terms of our university systems. But remember that when we did this work, we had not finished the development of the TSI for the ABE student. So this is just our anticipated thoughts in terms of that data. Next slide, please. If we look at this population, there are some issues that we have to begin to put our hands around, and that is to better understand the skill levels of these students who are falling below ninth grade. That's where that diagnostic component of the test comes into place. Their academic pursuits may be different. Some of those students may want to propel up the ladder into a credit-bearing course. Other students are coming to us with an interest to enter into workforce at basic skills level. So it's a difference from the student who is in developmental education who is trying to move into that pipeline, degree completion, etc. High school graduates, some of them will be high school graduates, some of them are not high school graduates and do not even have a GED. Their financial needs are different. Students who are not eligible for financial aid because they don't have the diploma or the GED are paying for their own programs. In addition to the fact that financial aid eligibility is also a question. We are not the only agency that is working with the adult basic population. There are other agencies in our community, not only Texas Workforce, but we have the federal programs and we have ISDs. So it isn't just us. It's a group of individuals that must come to the table to look at this issue. We're looking at also the community partners. And remember that not all community colleges in our state offer programs that can address this population. So there's a myriad of issues that have to be addressed. Next slide, please. This is just a quick snapshot. So as you look at this map, and I know I apologize, it's hard to read, but when you think of it, this slide is an example of how we are looking at data differently since the development of Closing the Gaps Planning Room, which you just got to see a minute ago. It's real exciting when we pull up slides or data and then can see it in a bigger picture. But the number on the Texas map here represents the number of students which tested in the ABE range on the TSI by community college service areas. The color coding represents the same students as a percentage of the population. The next slide that you have, that you will see, is the information as the previous slide, except that the data is a percentage of the students in the community college service area instead of the actual number of students. So it's all over the state. It's not just in one little quadrant. Next slide. An important point to keep in mind, and if you remember when we met in April, the question arose, what are we going to do with these ABE students next year? And the point I'm trying to make is, next year they will continue to be served as they have been in the past. We are still in the final stages to develop the ABE test with a diagnostic. And so it would not be fair to just tell a student you're in the ABE range and that's it. We need to know more. So for this coming year, as we enter the academic semester, students will continue to be served as in the past. Next slide. What are we currently doing? We said to you that we were going to begin to undertake a process for developing an operational plan that we will bring back to you in July. But in order to do that, we've brought our players in the community together in a series of meetings, which we started 2 weeks ago. Our next meeting is July the 4th, to begin to look at what each partner is responsible for, and to then begin to pose the questions that each agency is going to have to answer in order to then be able to create that operational plan so that we can come to you and say, this is the roadmap we're going to go down, so that by next January we can come back to you with some potential recommendations. So it's not a piece of work we can do overnight. I think the exciting part about it is, and we've met twice, Dr. Gardner's been an integral player in this process, is the seeing of these agencies really coming together with the common interest of this population, because the population is huge. And they equally have a desire to be trained, to be educated, just like our students who are coming directly to us out of high school. Next slide. There's some key questions that we have to answer, and this isn't all the questions. This is only a snapshot. But we've got to look at the testing of these students and to determine whether or not they should be allowed to enroll in developmental ed classes, and that's in classes with students performing above 9th grade level. Should students testing into these levels and served by our current IHEs all have to have a diploma? I mean, that's a question we have to ask. If you recall a minute ago, I said to you some of these students don't have them. Should recommendations focus mainly on the WECM program? We've got to look at the courses that we currently have on the books in terms of not only WECM but ACGM. Should we recognize and fund a common part of this program? We don't know. And should we limit DE courses to more than 2 levels? We have schools that have up to 6 levels in developmental education. And so 6 levels lets you know that those lowest levels are students probably functioning below 9th grade level. And so this is just some questions we've just begun to throw out there, and there's many more. But what we wanted to show you today was where we are. We have taken your charge seriously, and we will come back again in July and again next January. It is a team of people here at the agency, along with Dr. Gardner's guidance as our deputy, and that is what I would like to present to you today. I don't know if you might have any questions. We'll be glad to answer them as best we can.
I don't envy your position, and I understand the process will take some time, but is there any way we can expedite, because it seems like it's been going on for a while?
Well, it's been going on for a while because we didn't have the test. We have the test now that has made that picture very real. We will not be through with that TSI-ABE part until the fall. So in the fall, what we hope to have then is real data. We will have numbers that we don't have right now. So what we're doing is speculating. I wish I could say to you we could expedite it. We may have more answers to questions sooner than January. I don't know. But I don't think it would be realistic to say that the problem could be solved by when we come to you in January, because at that point, there will be recommendations, but certainly decisions that you as a board will have to make, because there will be implications. There could be legislative implications, and we're 2 years off from a legislative session. So
let me add for you that staff tell me when I insisted on this schedule that it was expedited. As recently as 2 days ago. The reality, I mean, Judy's right. We didn't know the extent of the numbers until just recently. What we have known for a long time is that there is not anywhere in Texas adequate funding for adult basic ed. Recently, adult basic ed, the main responsibility was, in this legislative session, transferred to the Texas Workforce Commission. So that changes some elements as well. So in reality, what we're having to deal with is what are our institutions going to do next fall with this population, but there's still a longer term beyond that, and is what's the state going to do overall? And there's some things, as Judy mentioned, that maybe legislatively, is the state going to put additional money into this? I think somebody mentioned at a meeting I was in yesterday that San Diego spends about the same amount of money on adult basic education as Texas. And it's not because they have more money or they are more free with money. Don't know about that, but we just have not adequately funded this aspect of higher ed, and at the coordinating board we haven't really talked about it much. So, but we need to be in a position where the schools know as soon as possible what they're going to do the following year, and have some expectations there. But I was actually at another meeting in another state recently, and they were very interested in what's happening in Texas because they don't have access, or they're not going to know about this population in the same way we will. And the reality is that the community colleges have been addressing it without the resources in sort of the best they can. And so we're going to at least try to do what we can to make sure that the students get the right kind of assistance in the right way, whether it's at the community college or elsewhere. And if anyone has some ideas to help make that happen more quickly, would be excited about that. But I can tell you,
But the only thing I can
we're
tell
pushing,
you,
and with your emphasis,
this issue is becoming, the population is becoming larger and
Yes.
larger, and our state has a problem there if we don't get some kind of grip on it.
it's estimated to be somewhere around 3.9 million.
And
in our
the commissioner, along with his colleagues on the PETA 16 Council, identified, I guess, 2 years from now, sort of working at that level of getting people into the workforce, at the 8th grade level and into the workforce with some community college credentials, based on a model out of Washington with some Texas tweaks, and it's been very successful. So that's in the bag as well.
We probably need to also
and this is one
mention
reason
about it.
Gary's at the table, because he has a great knowledge about this as well. And so the community colleges I know are concerned. The Success Council had probably talked about this for about an hour yesterday. So, and we have to even think of it in terms of our own formula. We haven't discussed this at all internally, but the question was, will this be considered as part of the community college formula discussion? And it may well be that it should be. And I hadn't had a chance to mention that to the commissioner yet, but we can't be passive about
Here's
it
my
at all.
deal. There's not going to be a perfect plan. No matter what we come up with, it
Right.
will evolve in time. And so, to me, let's not wait for the perfect plan. Let's roll the ball.
And I agree with you, and that's why I said we have to have something in hand by January, knowing that we're going to have to add to it later on. So I agree with you, and we appreciate any suggestions, and and we appreciate your pushing as well.
That's why we have you guys.
And the community colleges, they're well aware of the struggles that they're facing. We get calls, and we've been working with them, and they want to do something. It's just that they don't have the answers either. I also wanted to say that the commissioner made available to us with some funding. We're going to undertake a study very quickly in the next 5 months to get data nationwide that helps us see what is happening across the country, what models are working, what may not be working, what we may consider, and that will be part of what helps us come to you in January. Susan Brown and I and Nina Wright met day before yesterday, I guess. I don't even know what day I'm at today, Monday. And so we're trying to get that moving because we'll have to get a notice out in order to access who could come to the table that could provide us with this research information.
Yeah.
So
and
that
the
is
commissioner enabled that just
yes,
recently.
The commissioner is the one that made that
We're
possible.
happy to get outside assistance.
Other discussion? Yes.
I would just make a general comment that maybe this would be an area to focus some of our lean continuous improvement initiatives. It's not just an operational tool. That's for all programs, but it does take to empower lean. Part of the fuel is good data. You do have to have the data.
Heldenfels, there's a great article in the Harvard Business Review I shared with the Commissioner and Arturo on. It's talking about lean startups, which I think this fits exactly, and it's really talking about not having a finished product and going to the field, but working with the field to develop the product. And I think it's right on target.
Quick and crude is better than slow and elegant.
That's right.
Get it deployed and then improve it, continue improving it later.
Other questions? Thanks to you both. Appreciate your emphasis on this. You're right. We did talk about this in April. So, all right, moving on. G, H, I are on the consent calendar. Let's see, J also. Item K 5.1 is consideration of adopting the Commissioner's recommendation to the committee relating to amendments, and I'm not going to say all of those. Dr. Judith Laredo is going to bring those to us.
You have before you in your document the TSI rules. These rules have been in place. What we have done is gone back and updated the rules based on our DevEd plan of work, along with the information that has been added around the new TSI assessment. The rules were posted for 30 days, and we have received some comments, some very good comments. We received 9 comments from the field in terms of the TSI, basically grouped around 1 point, our TSI assessment and the STAR exam end of course, which also has implications in HB 5 because the STAR exam in the past utilizing Algebra 2 and English 3, those tests are going to be available, but they're not going to be required. So a question was raised. Question was raised in terms of the rigor of the TSI assessment for fear that they would have so many more students falling into developmental education and would need many more faculty. And then we had some concerns in terms of the timeline of implementing the new rules. And they're not really new rules. They're just modified rules based on the work we've been doing for the last 2 years. So that's where our questions fall in terms of the new rules. Also with the holistic advising process that we've talked about that it takes, and I'm sure the commissioner read the article in the paper the other day on soft skills, that employers are looking for people to come, education degree from the larger, or a degree from the phenomenal university of the world, and the most difficult degree means nothing to employers when students don't have soft skills. And that's that ability to work as a team, to know how to come to work on time and complete a task. And so that holistic advising is looking at everything. So those were the areas that we got concerns in. We have responded to those concerns. You have the copies in your possession that we will be sending out to the field. We will continue with our webinars as we move forward with the implementation of the revised rules, and to continue to work with our faculties across the state as we implement this whole TSI process. That's it.
We need a motion. Need a motion for the adoption of this rule?
So moved.
Any discussion, questions?
So there are a lot of comments here, and have those been incorporated into the agenda book version? Are we adopting a different version?
No, it's the same. It's the ones that you have. I mean, nothing's been changed. The one that we gave you today is it. Those are the.
So did the comments lead to staff recommending a change in what they originally had recommended?
Not at this point.
Okay, so the
Yeah.
comments were received but didn't result in a change.
That's right. There was only one change, and there was someone very carefully read every line and caught a mistake in a word where it should have been, it was is, it should have been as, and that change was made. But if you will read the comments, and then if you read the explanation, you will see why we did not change them. It was further clarified so that the person would see that what we were doing, what the intent was.
Thank you.
Discussion? None. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The motion passes. All right, item K2 is consideration of adopting the Commissioner's recommendation for rules applied to Chapter 4, applying to all public institutions of higher education in Texas, Subchapter A, General Provisions. Stacy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This agenda item is the consideration of proposed rules that would amend the waiver process used by Texas public institutions of higher education to comply with the requirement that institutions have a common calendar. Currently, the institution must request a waiver if the date of their fall, spring, or summer semester varies from the set date of the common calendar. The proposed rules would allow institutions to be in compliance if their semester started within 7 days of that set calendar date and would not require us to issue a waiver. So the rules were published in the Texas Register on April 5th, and we received one very supportive comment.
Discussion, questions? Take a motion? Second? All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. Motion passes. Thank you, Stacy. I believe K3 is on the consent calendar. K4 is consideration of adopting the Commissioner's recommendation to the committee relating to the proposed amendments. Chapter 7, Chapter 7.3, 7.7, 7.13, Board Rules. Stacy.
Thank you. The proposed rules would align the existing rules related to Chapter 7 to best practices identified in other states, including a specific requirement for an annual review. The proposed amendments would provide for an annual review of the institutions operating under a certificate of authorization and would allow institutions to annually acknowledge compliance with the applicable rules. The proposed amendments were posted in the Texas Register on May 10th, and several comments were received from the University of Phoenix and additionally from DeVry and from the Career Colleges and Schools of Texas. So you all have additional supplemental materials available to you, and we'll highlight the changes that have been made to the proposed rules based on the comments that we've received. So the initial comment from the Career Colleges and Schools of Texas requested that the rules revisions be postponed in order to allow stakeholders to hold meetings in Austin. However, we considered that and determined that the additional stakeholder input would not significantly alter the changes that we're proposing. Additionally, what we're concerned about is that we are in compliance with what the U.S. Department of Education is currently looking at. So delaying the changes would not necessarily benefit and could in fact result in Texas being out of compliance. So we are moving forward with these proposed rules revisions. Several of the comments did result in changes, and we certainly appreciate the information that was provided to us by the University of Phoenix. Specifically, we have identified those changes for you, and I can go over them line by line if you'd like, or ask that you let us know. The biggest concern really is that the institutions feel that we're asking them to report annually now instead of just a one-time and we issue your certification of authorization. We will do everything to ensure that the reporting format will be streamlined and will be efficient, and institutions will not have to make up their own process, but instead we will have it electronic so that they can just certify to us. University of Phoenix did point out that the way we had it, the rules proposed, they would have to send us all their advertising. We ensured to them that, in fact, we did not want that. We just wanted to make sure that that their advertising was in compliance with what we needed it to say, and it actually reflected what was going on in their Texas institutions. So,
Questions? All right.
So the final language is in the handout?
yes, it is. It's in the supplemental materials. It is highlighted and underlined and in italics. The changes that have been made as a result of the comments received. So the majority of the revisions came on pages 7 and 8. And 9 and 10. But the language that has been changed from the proposed rules are just the ones that are in italics. So, for example, we removed fair consumer protection practices from on page 8 under C, and instead have replaced that language with accurate and fair representation in publications, advertising, and promotion.
Is that going to address their question about advertising? They would only have to show you the advertising annually?
Yes, exactly. Okay. There were some additional concerns related to student complaints. We did not want to get all the student complaints from all institutions nationally. We wanted to only get the student complaints from the Texas students that made their way up to either the accreditor or to the coordinating board level. So we made those changes as well.
Other questions?
Do you have a motion for approval?
Not yet.
Moved.
Second.
Other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion passes. Thank you. Let's see, I believe 5L's consideration of adopting the staff recommendations to the committee relating to a request from the University of Texas at El Paso for a Master of Science degree and a Doctorate of Philosophy degree with a major in biomedical engineering. Ms. Stacy.
This next item is the request from UT El Paso to offer both the master's and PhD in biomedical engineering. The proposed program would admit 15 master's students and 5 doctoral students in its first year, and would increase to 64 master's students and 25 doctoral students in year 5. The institution plans to hire 1 assistant professor and 1 full professor within the first 5 years of the program's operation, and the institution anticipates that formula funding will cover about 22% of the program's cost. 9 Texas public higher education institutions currently offer graduate programs in biomedical engineering, and 3 are anticipating increasing their enrollment in the coming years. However, this area is the third fastest growing profession in the U.S., and the Texas Workforce Commission data suggests that current productivity levels may not keep pace with market demands. The program received positive site visit review by national experts, Dr. Bruce Wheeler from University of Florida, Dr. Martha LeBerg from Clemson University, and Dr. Michael Miller from Johns Hopkins University. We do have representatives from the institution available here. Junius Gonzalez, Provost, Richard Schrebenstopper, Dean of the College of Engineering, and Tom Balland, Program Director of Biomedical Engineering, are here. Are there any questions?
Move approval.
All right, any discussion? Not? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion passes. Thank you. M was on the consent calendar. N is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the distribution of funds trusteed to the coordinating board to support medical and graduate medical education for fiscal year 14 and report on trusteed funds for fiscal year 13. Stacy.
Yes, this item is relates to consideration of both the Family Practice Residency Program and the Joint Admissions Medical Program, and you all have yet another supplemental item at your desk to take a quick look at. The Family Practice Residency Program has a statutory advisory committee. That committee is led by Dr. Roland Gertz, and in compliance with our new sunset directives, so that statutory advisory committees make their directives, their recommendations directly to the board, he has provided us with a letter stating that this recommendation is from that advisory committee. It was a staff recommendation to that advisory committee, just so that you all know that we do lots of staff work behind the scenes. The committee did meet on June 19th and adopted the recommendation to provide funding based on the following criteria. First, provide per resident funding based on the number of residents certified in training on September 1, 2013, and provide funding to maintain the rural and public health rotation programs. One of those programs, the public health rotation, was eliminated basically last time around because this program had a 75% funding reduction. So we'll reinstate that program and have that go back up. Then the Joint Admission Medical Program received an appropriation of $10.2 million this biennium, which is an increase from last biennium of $7.7 million. And also included in your materials is a report on the fiscal year 13 expenditures related to those two programs.
Yes, Dr. Tesher.
So the Family Practice Residency Advisory Committee agreed with the staff recommendation?
That's correct.
Okay, I move approval.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Let's see, O is on the consent calendar. 5P is on the consent calendar. 5Q, 5R. What did I miss? Yes. Q, R, S, and T, and U are on the consent calendar. I believe that's it. Yes, it was originally on. So item 6 is, I did. Item 6, I need a motion for adjournment. All in favor say aye. Discussion? Motion carries. Thank you.
Well done.
I don't have